Uh-oh, there she goes, thinking out loud again. Hey guys, this is Jules with True Crime Reactions. Harsh Reality did a video the other day, maybe yesterday, talking about some of the things that didn't make sense to him in the case. And so I wanted to go ahead and add to that list. And I don't specifically remember everything that Harsh talked about, but I know he talked about the car. And I know that he seems to be real adamant on the fact that it's odd that someone who is so smart, supposed to be so smart, and, this is the field that they are studying in. Criminology, criminal justice, things not to do are ingrained in this man's head. And the first mistake he makes is taking his own vehicle. I agree with Harsh on that. There's a lot more to it though. There's a lot more things that don't make a lot of sense if you have Bryan Kohberger as your guy. Some people think that I'm just completely pro-defense, 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 pro-defense. No. Pay attention more. Maybe you wouldn't feel that way. Comprehension is extremely important. What I have issues with is the fact that I have a list here of 12 things. 12. That in my mind, with what we know right now, do not make any sense for Bryan Kohberger to be the guy. You might have a more logical view on the things that I have questions about. And you might change my mind. So let's go through this list. And of course, number one is he did take his own car. That didn't make sense to me. And we've talked about any sort of data recording. I don't know for sure exactly what Bryan's car had in it. I just don't. The black box itself, from everything that I have seen, is literally an event triggered system. And I know people have been talking about the Burla report and something else that possibly could be, in the car to help with this situation. But regardless, black box, Burla, GPS, whatever, those could have been in literally any vehicle. Any vehicle. He took his own vehicle. But was that something that they could have pulled prior to arresting him to verify his vehicle's information, knowing that they had everything about him on file because of these pullovers? They had the VIN number, car information, everything they needed. See, I don't know a lot about that. I managed a diesel shop for a while, but that was really me just ordering parts and telling people what to do that needed to be done. I don't know anything about this type of stuff because I haven't had the need to. But the car thing is questionable because regardless of if it had the capability to track him or not, you took your own vehicle. That doesn't make sense. This man wanted to teach and help, Barney Fife type police departments. That's the vibe I get when I read the way that he would have been coming about this internship thing about wanting to help with these cloud-based forensics and stuff. I don't know why that's the vibe I get. That's just the vibe I get. But he wanted to help smaller town that didn't really understand the more advanced techniques for cloud-based forensics. And whenever I think about that in itself, it really does flip me over to my 180 theory. I haven't completely laid that out yet. Because honestly, whenever I lay it out in my head, it's really scary. And it sounds almost too dramatic. But the truth is usually stranger than fiction, right? And maybe the main reason I haven't been able to just throw out my complete 180 theory is because there's still things that just don't. Even though some of these things I could have, this makes no sense for it to be Bryan, but, there's a couple of those. I mean, there's a lot of those. I don't have those two views on. So it makes it kind of difficult for me to put all of that together. But I also know that this man is a human, right? So what if whenever he was walking out of his apartment complex, or walking out of his apartment, that like car accident scene threw him off, and that's the reason why his phone didn't get turned off until later on. And now this is me going based off of everything that we are knowing and Bryan Kohberger. Like, I'm not going at this list as if it's not Bryan, because these are things that we're being told about Bryan that I have questions about, just so that that's clear. But I've wondered if maybe whenever he walked out and that accident scene was like that, and it, because from what we're kind of gathering, he had to kind of take like an alternative route, right? To like get out of his area because of this car accident scene. Maybe walking out to that would have like thrown him, and that's why he didn't turn his phone off. But, you know, to me, like, if you're smart as shit and you have something planned that you know that you need to do in your own mind, because you don't need to do it, bro. You don't need to do it. But in your own mind, you know that you feel like you need to do this thing. And the second that you walk out of your apartment, there's like catastrophe in front of you, and you still say it's go time. A few minutes later, you realize that your phone isn't turned off, and so you turn it off into where, you know, in your brain, you know that this is a compromising situation that you just put yourself in, because now you're showing your phone being off after you've left your apartment, showing that you were not in your apartment at the time that all this stuff was going on. And that's like issue number 2, just that we know of. We don't know what could have possibly, if anything, happened prior to that or in between any of this. This is just what we know. So now you turn your phone off later than you should be turning it off, with your studies telling you what and what not to do, in my opinion, because even I would know, most people would know, that turning it off after you leave does not help you. It actually makes it like worse. And since we're talking about the phone being off network, okay, it also bothers me where it came back on network. I don't understand what would make him want to turn his phone back on where he did, in the location that he did. He would know not to have it on like in the area itself. But that almost would have been like better for him, with the way that they're saying that there's so many times that his car's already been in that area. It wasn't like a dozen, right? So if he would have just left his phone on, I almost feel like it would have been like more of like, oh, this is just routine for him to be in the area, because we've already got all this proof that he's in the area constantly. So him being in the area that night was just normal. But that's whenever it was all turned off, because we don't really know if he turned it off, if he put it on airplane mode, if he opened it up and took the battery out. We don't know. And then I've, you know, the Range Rover. The Range Rover and his connection to the victims is one of the things I just don't understand it. Because the defense is claiming there's no connection between Bryan Kohberger and the victims. Now, again, and I've mentioned this, they're not making that clear if that is 4 victims or 6. Because I know that Dylan and Bethany, in the eyes of the state, are victims because they were at home at the time, and that's how they've been portrayed to everybody from the very beginning. But I don't know if in the defense's statement they mean only Kaylee, Maddie, Xana, Ethan, or if that includes Dylan and Bethany. And whenever there's like multiple deaths like this, to where these people's lives, yeah, like, cool, they lived together. Okay, cool, they were roommates. It's very strange that all of their deaths could have been like intertwined somehow by anything more than a coincidence or happenstance. The Range Rover. Kaylee literally got that thing on Friday afternoon. She had it for like 40 hours before she was taken away. And she wanted to surprise Maddie with it. So it hadn't been shown to Maddie. It hadn't been posted on social media. It wasn't anywhere on social media. She literally had gotten it and went down there. So unless he would have like some sort of live feed into the house, or actually did have a connection with somebody that actually knew Kaylee, how the hell would he have known that that was her vehicle? And I asked that question literally in the beginning of this case, and so many people were like, oh, social media. No, it was never posted on social media. So he turns off his phone at a weird time, has a car accident right in front of him as he's leaving his apartment, finally gets, takes an hour or whatever, a huge long time to get over to a drive that normally only takes him like 10, 15, 12 minutes, somewhere around there. And then you get there and you see a strange vehicle in the parking lot and you still think, oh yeah, tonight's the night. And you don't know if it's another guy's. You don't know if it's multiple people that are extra in that house now. You have no idea. Unless you do. But how would he have known? If it wasn't on social media, how else would he have known that it was still okay to go inside because that was Kaylee's car? That's always thrown me. That's always thrown me because I've seen Range Rovers like hers driving around, and it looks like a dude car to me. I mean, I'm a girl, maybe that's why it looks like a dude car. Maybe Bryan Kohberger wouldn't have that same reaction seeing that vehicle, but it's still a stranger's vehicle at a house that you're aiming at that you've never seen before, and you still decide, yep, it's go time. Kaylee was at her parents' house for like a few weeks prior to this. From what we're understanding, she was already like working at home for the company that she was going to be working for here in Texas. So I'm wondering if his phone ever showed up in that neighborhood like during the weeks that Kaylee wasn't there. But I've questioned that because she was gone for a couple of weeks. Like a few weeks. So I wonder. Okay, so now we have the damn DoorDash. I don't understand. The DoorDash situation drives me absolutely insane. This person was literally like sharing the same oxygen as the person who did this. They were so close together. You know what I mean? And I wish that we had some sort of knowledge of what actually happened that night when it came to the DoorDash. Because I know like some people were talking about, okay, did they leave like a light on to let the DoorDasher know, hey, this is the house, and did it get turned off after the DoorDasher left? I don't really know anyone who turns their lights off anymore. If there were any lights on King Road that night, like outside security lights or whatever, I don't feel like they would have been turned off just because the DoorDasher left. And like we still don't know if the food was handed straight to someone inside the house or if it was like porch drop off. I mean, I've seen people act like, oh, it was contactless delivery and blah, 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 blah. Nobody knows that. If Kaylee's mom doesn't have her physical phone back at this point in time, I can pretty much assure you that neither does Xana's family. If they do, I don't know why things would be being handled differently. But if Kaylee's mom is saying that at the time that she did that interview with Drunk Turkey that they did not have Kaylee's physical phone in their possession again, I will highly doubt Xana's family did. They might. It's been like 2 months now, right? A little bit more than 2 months. Maybe they've gotten the phones back by now. We don't know. No one knows what kind of drop-off or delivery that it actually was. We just know that it was apparently DoorDash. That's all we know. And it could literally be coincidence, guys. It really could. It literally could have been coincidence. There's a possibility that as the person that did this was driving around, that they completely missed the DoorDash driver. Like they either saw the DoorDash happening or they completely missed the driver. I just don't think that they realized that there was a DoorDash, and this is why. If this is like the way the scenario went down, if Xana really ordered this herself, got the food, and all of this was going on, and she was on TikTok at 412 and all of this, okay? If you were watching the house and you just saw that there was a DoorDash delivery, if it was dropped off on the porch because somebody like knocked, rang the doorbell, whatever, and nobody answered, then I guess maybe that would make you feel like you could go. It would make me question why the hell you're ordering food but not answering the door. But then again, that could be, I know there's a lot of conspiracies around the DoorDash. So I'm just not even going to continue that last sentence. I'm just going to keep that, let y'all's brains do what y'all want with that one. But if you don't see the DoorDash driver, it would make more sense for the timing to be coincidental, because who would see somebody opening a door to get an order and then decide, okay, the house is full of awake people, let me just go ahead and do this now. It's still go time. Guys, it doesn't make sense. But if you're seeing someone actively like opening the door and taking food order, you know damn well they're going to be awake, they're going to be eating, they're going to be alert. That's why I'm like, okay, if this was him, he couldn't have seen the DoorDash driver. Because if they would have opened the door and gotten their food, went back in the bedroom and sat back down, presented to me on TikTok at 412, why would you have gone into the house knowing that you just saw like the people awake? Proof of the people awake. Proof it's not safe for you to go in. Proof that it's not go time. But you go anyway. Another thing I question is about the breaks. I don't feel like he was leaving. A lot of people think that he was like going back home to like run. I don't think he was. He had like electronics and all kinds of stuff still back at his apartment that he would have taken with him if he wasn't planning on coming back. Unless my 180 theory, little demon on my shoulder, when I think about those things, says he left it there on purpose because there's something on it he wants them to find because he's using this as part of a game. That's where my 180 theories go with him. He's either completely innocent and being, framed somehow, or he's extremely sick. And he played a lot of like high level. It's hard for me to explain the way that I see this person's brain whenever I think about the other direction. Like I can almost like physically see its creation, like as I'm thinking of it. Like I can see like it's so hard to explain. I wish I could like throw what it is in my brain, like what I'm visualizing in my brain on the screen so that you guys can understand. It's really hard to put into words. So I'm just not even going to try to because I'm going to sound like a fool. But my 180 theory is he left these electronics and things all there because he wanted the cops to find them because there's certain things on them or there's certain things not on them. And this is all part of a game. But where was he for Thanksgiving? That's a pretty long break. And we have no idea if he was like still hanging around or if he left to go home then too and then came back. I don't know if it would matter, but it kind of does because it's after the crime and before the arrest. So yeah, it kind of does. And we haven't heard a single thing about Thanksgiving break. That's always kind of been like, why? So I don't know. And then there's the fact that Bryan Kohberger took an ancestry test of some sort. That is something that we were told by a neighbor. And that's always, I have questions about that too, because was it before or after? Because if it was before, wouldn't that be something that like a smart person might like think about before they do something crazy? Dang, I just took an ancestor test. My DNA's on the internet. I mean, because obviously the protocols and the things in place aren't very well respected and are overstepped quite a bit. But if it was after, and Bryan is the guy, would he have done it just to like play with the cops? Just to see if they would actually break those rules? See, this where it goes back to my 180. How far will the cops go to get someone? How far will they go to get a conviction? How far will they go to put a name where it used to say suspect? Like, was it just like an innocent ancestry test, or did it have purpose? Because if it was just an innocent one and it was done prior, that makes no sense to me. Whenever, they're smart, they know, they're supposed to know how to like not do stupid things in these situations. And I just don't see why he would, if he's the guy who did this, why he would in turn like take an ancestry test after the fact, unless it was to test the cops. My 180 theories are literally him having crap to do with it, to he's like a maniacal mastermind who orchestrated literally every little detail. And he's playing the system like a fiddle, and he knows he's going to be exonerated, or he at least thinks he's going to be exonerated because of how he played this game. I don't know. That's why I don't understand. And I've been talking about this for like a while. I've been talking like this forever now. That's why I'm so confused about this case. Because I see the capability, like mentally, I see the capability of Bryan could be this criminal genius, or he could have literally nothing to do with it. I just haven't seen anything that can actually point me in one direction more than the other. I'm still very much on the fence of like 50-50 here, because we just don't know. We only know what the public knows, and that's not everything. But I know that so far what the public knows, they're not doing a very good job of making it seem as if he's the one who did this without a doubt. And we also have like the unknown male DNAs. Okay, and I've said this again, I've said this before, I let them make it on, not doing any workup on the one that was outside, but you're telling me there's 2 unknown profiles inside the home, and y'all don't do the exact same workup on those that you did on the knife sheath for Y. I don't understand how they didn't get the exact same level of attention until they no longer needed that level of attention. And I know that the state made a comment about how those samples were not eligible to be ran in CODIS. And I mentioned that before too. And I had comments about how, oh, it was like a mixed sample, blah, blah, blah. Well, even if it was a mixed sample, there's literally things that can be done to those samples to separate them, to decontaminate the sample. Several things can be done. So they're going to have to explain. And I feel like Ann Taylor is going to make them explain. What do you actually mean whenever you tell us that these other DNA samples were not eligible to be ran through CODIS? Like, you need to give me the deets on that, because they were surveilling someone hard enough to where they felt the need to like jack a cigarette butt and DNA test it. So obviously they're not going to tell us, who the person was they were surveilling, whose cigarette butt it was, none of those things. But whoever this person was a serious enough suspect at the time, before Bryan was on their radar, I guess, that they were following this person and wanting to get a DNA sample. This person must have refused to give it, which is also questionable if you think about it, because if you're innocent and you're trying to, be checked off the list of suspects, and you know for a fact that you had nothing to do with nothing, then why wouldn't you just... I would have, yep, take it. It ain't me, bro. So yeah, I'd love to know the details on that. We'll probably never know. Now, I know there's been some conflicting reports about if he was actually in class the next school day or not. And this is my thing. Like, I know that there's been some of his classmates that said, he was a little bit more talkative than normal, but he would like shut down whenever the crime would be talked about. We don't really know any of those things. But while those people are telling us about his like behavioral changes and whatnot, none of them are mentioning him having any injuries. Okay. And even if he was like covering himself up with something, so you mean to tell me that he takes out 4 people and none of them aim for his face? Because it's not like he was wearing like a hockey mask. Okay. The way that it's being described to us in the PCA, it's like it's covering his nose and his mouth. It's not something that's going to protect him from not having a bruise or something on his face. And if you have like sore muscles, if a muscle was injured, if something was twisted, if something was sprained in fighting, you wouldn't be able to hide that either. You're telling me that this guy came in here and took out 4 people with a manual weapon in 7-8 minutes, and he has no effects from that whatsoever. How do you go after 4 people and have no injuries to your face? At this point, if he had any sort of injuries whenever he was back in class around all of these people within the week after the crime, we'd have been told that by now. Yeah, he came in with a limp. Yeah, he had a huge gash on his cheek, but it wouldn't tell us what happened. Yeah, he had a huge bruise on his jaw, but we don't know what happened. He wouldn't say. None of that. I don't see how. I mean, obviously, it's possible for someone to do something to somebody and be able to walk away with nothing on them. It's happened before. But for somebody's, and you walk away with nothing on you, you know, it just doesn't make sense. Okay, so now we're going to get to the fact that he left 2 people alive. And this is going to go in with what I have written down for like the whole who could have possibly been the target situation. Because, you know, the way that the victims' names are given to us is normally supposed to be the order of death. And we've always been given Maddie's name first. And to me, Maddie being the target, I could see it. Don't have a reason for it. No connection between the two. But her being the target sort of made sense until it didn't anymore. For all of these make no sense things, okay, for him to have walked out of his apartment, saw the car accident, have to go an alternate route, turn his phone off, or take his phone off network after he left his house, meaning it's a horrible spot to do so if you're about to do something stupid because it shows you're not actually in your home. The knife sheath, okay, showing up and seeing the Range Rover and still saying go time, you know, all of these things, and it's still happening. Those are the main reasons. I mean, not the knife sheath. The knife sheath came. Yeah, no, screw it. Let's just throw the knife sheath in here too, because you brought a sheathed weapon. Who does that? Who does that? I don't know a single person that would logically think, okay, I'm going to take a sheathed weapon with me into a crime scene that I'm about to create, knowing that I'm going to be having to take out this person, this person, this person, and this person with this weapon. I'm not going to be able to concentrate or focus on where the additional piece to the weapon is at all times. That doesn't make sense. Why would you take a sheath in there? Okay, like, people walk around with little knife sheaths connected to their pants all the time, especially here in Texas. You cannot walk into any store anywhere without seeing guns and knives just all over the place. It's beautiful. But if one was going to commit a crime, logic would tell you not to bring the sheath inside the house. But the only thing that would make all of these things make sense, and it still lead up to what happened here, is opportunity. And I've said that before. Before we even knew who Bryan was, I've questioned crime of opportunity because of Kaylee. She had been gone for weeks. She'd been at her parents' house for weeks. If Maddie was the true target and was being stalked, why wouldn't the person have chose all those weeks that she would have been on that 3rd floor by herself without Kaylee and a dog to interrupt whatever you were going to do? So for the target to have been Maddie, it doesn't really make much sense. Because now here's Kaylee, home for the first time in weeks with her dog. Maddie is no longer alone on that 3rd floor. Now it's riskier, which is why, again, I would love to know if during the time that she was at her parents' house, if Bryan's car ever was there, if his phone was ever there, if it pinged in the neighborhood while she was gone. I feel like that's an important question. Now, when it comes to Xana, it was extremely common for Ethan to be spending the night with her. So if Xana was your target, why would you choose a weekend knowing that most likely her big, strong boyfriend was going to be there with her? If you wanted to get her alone in order to take her out, you wouldn't do it on a weekend night when her big, strong boyfriend was going to be there, most likely. You would do it on a night whenever you knew he wasn't going to be there, like during the week. Now, when it comes to Ethan himself, I've questioned that for 2 reasons. For one, if he's spending the night at his girlfriend's house, he's not as protected as he is if he's in a house full of robust college men. And then Steve Gonsalves also said they didn't have to go upstairs. So that's another reason why I put this in here, because a lot of people don't talk about Ethan. They don't. I just don't see how all 4 people could be the target, but the roommates lived, because that would make the house itself the target. And the 2 roommates were left alone like they didn't even exist. Literally like they didn't even exist. And that just makes no logical sense to me at all. 4 people, 2 different floors, living technically completely different lives. All they do is share a house together, party a little together. Their lives are all going completely different directions. And 2 other people are left to live. None of it makes any sense to me. But I guess that's it for the list that I made. If there's anything about the case that you guys are having issues with trying to connect, let me know, because I know that I'm probably missing a couple of things. I don't want this guy to walk if he's the one who did it. It's the last thing that I want. And anyone who knows my story knows the last thing that I want is someone who did something wrong getting away with it. But I feel like, at the least, the things that I brought up today, they're going to all pretty much need to be answered for any of this to make sense. Like the psychology of the reason why somebody like him, who seemed like a perfectionist, and that's just me speculating based off of, the couple of things that we've been told about the way he is with his schoolwork and his, his career path. Why would somebody like that do something like this with all of these things, all of these monkey wrenches, let's just put them, being thrown into the plan? Multiple things being thrown into the plan. And it's still go time for him. And let's also consider the Banfield incident too in this, okay? Because at the time that they're claiming that he left his apartment area, he definitely could have been, in that area to see all the cops and all the stuff going on at the Banfield at the same time. And with the cops that close to the house, let's just add that monkey wrench in, and he still decided, yeah, it's go time. So he walks out of his apartment. There's a car accident. He has to go a different route out. His phone gets turned off after he leaves his apartment. He gets over there. Cops in the Banfield. There's a SUV in the parking lot he's never seen before. And now on top of that, we've got, this DoorDash delivery that he might or might not have even known about. And it's still go time. All these things that don't make sense and don't look familiar and aren't going to get you to get away with anything, and you still decide, let's go. Yeah. All right, let me know what you guys think in the comments. I don't ever say this. I don't like saying this stuff. That's why it's in my little trailer things. I've seen some people commenting that somehow they became unsubscribed to the channel. Now, I have seen this happen before. I follow a lot of really big channels, and sometimes they'll get on there and say, hey, I'm getting comments that YouTube is unsubscribing you guys. Please check your subscriptions. And it's true. I'll go check it, and I've been subscribed for years, and suddenly I'm not. So if you guys do not mind, please, if you are not subscribed, please subscribe so that we can have these conversations together. I do as much as I can with my busy schedule to reply back in the comments, have actual conversations with people who want to have conversations about these things. I do appreciate opposing opinions. Just do not come at me like a psychopath, or else you're going to get psychopath back. Okay, I promise. You can tell me your view of it if you are thinking that I am wrong. Just do not come at me like a dickhead. It's not hard. And I don't know why other channels act so ridiculous about people having opposing views of theirs. But people will go to like post something in the comments that's a little bit different than what I think. And they'll say like, I hope I don't get blocked for this. And then their comment is completely respectful and they're just giving me how they think. And there's nothing wrong with what they have to say. But their very first thing is, I really hope I don't get blocked for this, but this is how I think. Okay, well, you're watching the wrong channels. If you think that you're going to get blocked for giving a respectable, a respectful opinion of your own to someone, I don't block people. I don't delete comments unless you deserve it. Like if you're a super prick, goodbye. I'll never see your name pop up on my notifications ever again. But have conversations with me. If I'm thinking something incorrectly, if I'm missing something, let me know. Just don't be a douchebag. We do have the hearing for the cameras on the 13th. Today is the 11th. Today is 9/11. Do not forget to give a moment of silence today. And I just read an article yesterday. All these years later, what is this, 22 years later? 22 years later, and they have identified another man and another woman who had previously been unidentified victims of 9/11. Like, I'm sure those families probably had an idea and they kind of knew, but now they know after 22 years. Can you imagine? But give a moment of silence today, regardless of how you feel about who's responsible for that situation. All those people really did die. So have that moment of silence for them. But I don't know what you guys think in the comments about this crazy ass video. Be sure to be a good human, guys. I'm going to start like putting those little notes in here. Be a good human. Just be a good person. It takes more effort to be a dill hole to people than it does to just be normal and just be nice. So just be nice. Okay? See y'all.